After it, the hearing, Harry gasped. He could not help himself. The large dragon he had entered was horribly familiar. He had not only seen it before, he had been here before. This was the place he had visited inside Dumbledore's pensive, the place where he had watched the Lestrange sentenced to life imprisonment in Azkaban. The walls were made of dark stone, dimly lit by torch. Empty benches rose on either side of him, but ahead, in the highest bench of all, were many shadowy figures. They entered, been talking in low voices, but as the heavy door swung closed behind Harry and ominous silence fell, cold male voice rang across the courtroom. "You're late." "Sorry," said Harry nervously. I didn't know the time had changed." "This is not the Wizardgon's fault," said the voice. "An owl was sent to you this morning. Take your seat." Harry dropped his gaze to the chair in the center of the room, arms of which were covered in chains. He had seen those chains spring to life and blind forever and between them. His footsteps echoed loudly as he walked across the stone floor. When he sat gingerly on the edge of the chair, of chain clicked rather threateningly but did not blind him. Feeling rather sick, he looked up at the people seated at the bench above. There were about 50 of them, all as far as he could see, wearing plum-colored robes with elaborated worked silver W on the left-hand side of the chest, and all staring down their noses at him. Some of very austere expression, other look of frank curiosity. In the very middle of the front row sat Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic. Fudge was a portly man who often sported a lime green bowler hat, though today he had dispensed with it. He had dispensed too with a intense smile he had once worn when he spoke to Harry, a broad square jaw which with very short grey hair sat on Fudge's lap. He wore a monocle and looked forbidding. On Fudge's right was another witch, but she was sitting so far back on the bench that her face was in shadow. "Very well," said Fudge, the accused being present. "Finally, let us begin. Are you ready?" He fell down the row. "Yes, sir," said an eager voice. Harry knew. Ron's brother Percy was sitting at the very end of the front bench. Harry looked at Percy, expecting some sign of recognition from him, but none came. Percy's eyes behind his horn-rimmed glasses were fixed at his parchment, a quill poised in his hand. "Disciplinary hearing of the 12th of August," said Fudge in a ringing voice, and Percy began taking note at once into offence committed under the decree of the reasonable restriction of underage sorcery and international statute of sorcery by Harry James Potter, a resident at number 4 Private Drive, Little Winning, Surrey. Interrogator Cornelius Oswald Fudge, Ministry of Magic. Amelia Sawson Bones, Head of Department of Magical Law Enforcement. Dollar Jane Umbridge, Senior Undersecretary of the Ministry. Court Scribe. Percy Ignatius Weasley, Witness for the Defense. Albus Percival Wolfenbane Dumbledore, said a quiet voice from behind Harry, who turned his head so fast he cracked his neck. Dumbledore was striding serenely across the room, wearing long midnight blue robe and perfectly calm expression. His long silver braid and hair gleamed in the torchlight as he drew level with Harry and looked up at first through the half-moon spectacle that rested halfway down his very crooked nose. The members of the wizard garments were muttering. All eyes were now on Dumbledore. Some looked annoyed, others slightly frightened. Two elder witches in the back row, however, raised their hand and waved in welcome. Powerful emotion had risen in Harry's chest at the sight of Dumbledore's. a fortified, hopeful feeling rather like that which Phoenix song gave him. He wanted to catch Dumbledore's eye, but Dumbledore was not looking this way. He was continued to look up at the obviously flustered Fudge. Ah, said Fudge, who looked thoroughly disconcerted. Dumbledore, yes, sure, got our message that the time and a place of the hearing and be changed. Then I must have missed it, said Dumbledore cheerfully. However, due to a luck mistake, I have arrived at Ministry 3 hours early, so no harm done. Yes, well, I suppose we'll need another chair. I, Wesley, could you? Not to worry, said Dumbledore pleasantly. He took out his wand, gave a little fling, and squash, Singh's armchair appeared out of nowhere next to Harry. Dumbledore sat down, put the tip of his long finger together, and looked at Fudge over them with an expression of polite interest. The Wizardhammer was still muttering and were getting restless. Only when first spoke again did they settle down. Yes, said Fudge again, shuffling his notes. Well then, so the change, yes. He extricated a piece of parchment from the pile before him, took a deep breath, and read. The charges against the accused are as follows: that he did knowingly, deliberately, and in full awareness of the illegality of his action, having received a previous written warning from the Ministry of Magic on the similar charge, produce a Patronus charm in a Mughal inhabited area. In the presence of Mughal on August the 2nd of 23 minutes past 9, which constitute an offence under paragraph C of the Decree of the Reasonable Restriction of Underage Sorcery 1875, and also under Section 13 of the International Confederation of Wizards Statute of Secrecy. You are Harry James Potter of number 4 Private Dive, Little Winning Surrey. Fudge said, glaring at Harry over the top of his parchment. Yes, said Harry. You received an official warning from the Ministry for using illegal magic 3 years ago. Did you not? Yes, but yet you conjured a Patronus on the night on the 2nd of August, said Fudge. Yes, said Harry, but knowingly that you are not permitted to use magic outside school while you are under age of 17. Yes, but knowingly that you were in the area full of Muggle. Yes, but fully aware that you were in close proximity to the Muggle at the time. Yes, said Harry angrily, but I only use it because we were the witch with the monocle on Fudge left cut across him in a blooming voice. You produce a fully fledged patrons. Yes, said Harry, because a populous patrons award, said Harry. A patron had a clearly defined form. I mean to say it was more than vapor or a smoke. Yes, said Harry, feeling both impatient and slightly desperate. It's a stag. It's always a stag. Always boom, Madam Bones. You have produced a patrons before now? Yes, said Harry. I have been doing it for over a year. And you are 15-year-old? Yes. And you learned this at school? Yes, Professor Lupin taught me in third year because of the impressive, said Madame Bones, staring down at him. Or two patrons at that age, very impressive indeed. Some of the wizards and witches around her were muttering again. A few nodded, but others were frowning and shaking their heads. It's not a question of how impressive the magic was, said Fudge in a tasty voice. In fact, the more impressive, the worse it is. I would have thought, given that the boy did it in plain view of Muggle. Those who had been frowning now murmured in agreement, but it was sight of Percy's sanctimonious little nod that got Harry into speech. I did it because of Dementors, he said loudly, before anyone could interrupt him again. He had expected more muttering, but the silence that fell seemed to be somehow denser than before. Dementor, said Madame Bones after a moment, raising her thick eyebrow so that her monocle looked in danger of falling out. What do you mean, boy? I mean, there were two Dementors down that alleyway, and they went for me and my cousin. Oh, said Fudge again, blinking unpleasantly as he looked around at the Wisgoms as though inviting them to share the joke. Yes, yes, I thought we had be hearing something like this. Dementors in Little Winging, Madame Bones said in tone of great surprise. I don't understand, don't you, Amila? Said first, still smirking. Let me explain. He's been thinking it through and decided Dementor would make a very nice little converse story. Very nice indeed. Muggle can't see Dementors, can the boy? Highly convinced, highly convinced. So it's just your word and no witness. I'm not lying, said Harry loudly over another outbreak of muttering from the court. There were two of them coming from opposite end of the alley. Everything went dark and cold, and my cousin felt them and ran for it. Enough, said Fudge, with a very supercilious look on his face. I'm sorry to interrupt what I am sure would have been a very well rehearsed story. Dumbledore cleared his throat. The wizard government fell silent again. We do in fact have witness to the presence of Dementor in a alleyway, he said, other than Dudley Dursley. I mean Fudge's plump face seemed to slacken as though somebody had let air out of it. He stared down at Dumbledore for a moment or two, then, with the appearance of a man pulling himself back together, said, We haven't got time to listen to more riddles, I'm afraid, Dumbledore. I want this dealt with quickly. I may be wrong, said Dumbledore pleasantly, but I am sure that under the Wisdom's Charter of Right, the accused has right to present witness for his or her case. Isn't that the policy of Department of Magical Law Enforcement, Madam Bones? He continued, addressing the witch in the monocle. True, said Madam Bones, perfectly true. Oh, very well, sniffed Fudge. Where is this person? I brought her with me, said Dumbledore. She's just outside the door. Should I? No, Weasley. You go, Fudge barked at Percy, who got up at once, hurried down the stone step from the judge's balcony, and hasted past Dumbledore and Harry without glancing at them. A moment later, Percy returned, followed by Miss Fig. She looked scared and more batty than ever. Harry wished she had brought to change out of her carpet sleeper. Dumbledore stood up and gave Mrs. Fig his chair, conjured a second one for himself. Full name, said Fuzz loudly when Miss Fig had perched herself nervously on the very edge of seat. Arvilla Doran Fig, said Mrs. Fig in her bowery voice. And who exactly are you? Said Fudge in a bored and lofty voice. I'm a resident of Little Winging, close to where Harry Potter lives, said Mrs. Fug. We have no record of any witch or wizard living in Little Winning other than Harry Potter, said Madame Bones at once. That situation has always been closely monitored given past event. I'm a squib, said Mrs. Twig. So you wouldn't have me registered, would you? A squib? Yes, said Fudge, eyeing her suspiciously. We'll be checking that. You leave detail of your percentage with my assistant. Wesley incidentally can squibs sedimenter, he added, looking left and right along the bench where he sat. Yes, we can, said Mrs. Fig indigently. Buzz looked back down at her, his eyebrow raised. Very well, he said coolly. What is your story? I had gone out to buy cat food from the corner shop of the end of Wisteria Walk shortly after 9 of the evening of the 2nd of August, blabbed Mrs. Fig at once, as though she had learned what she was saying by heart. When I heard a disturbance down in the alleyway between Magnolia Crescent and Wisteria Walk, on approaching the mouth of alleyway, I saw Dementor running, said Madame Bones sharply. Dementor don't run, they glide. That's what I mean to say, said Mrs. Fig quickly. Patch of pink appeared in her withered cheek, gliding along the alley toward that what looked like two boys. What did they look like? Said Madame Bones, narrowing her eyes so that the monocle's edge disappeared into her flesh. Well, one was very large and the other one rather skinny. No, 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 said Madame Bones impatiently. The Dementor described them. Oh, said Miss Fitz, the pink flush creeping up her neck now. They were big and wearing cloaks. Harry felt a horrible sink in the pit of his stomach. Whatever Miss Fugg said, on the contrary, it sounded to him though the most she had ever seen was picture of Dementor, and a picture could never convey the truth of what these beings were like. The eerie way they moved, hovering inch over the ground, or the rotting smell of them, or that terrible rattling noise they made as they sucked on the surrounding air. A dumpy wizard with a large black moustache in a second row leaned close to his neighbor. A fizzy-haired witch and whispered something in her ear. She smirked and nodded. Big and wearing cloak, repeated Madame Bones coolly, while Fur snorted diversely. I see anything else? Yes, said Mrs. Fig. I felt them. Everything went cold, and this was a very warm summer night. Mark you, and I felt as though all happiness had gone from the world. And I remember a dreadful thing. Her voice shook and died. Madame Bones' eye widened slightly. Harry could see a red mark under her eyebrow where the monocle had dug into it. What did the Dementor do? She asked, and Harry felt a rush of hope. They went for the boys, said Mrs. Fig, her voice stronger and more confident now, the pink flush ebbing away from her face. One of them had fallen, the other was backing away, trying to repel the Dementor. That was Harry. He tried twice to produce silver vapor. On the third attempt, he produced a Patron's, which charged down the first Dementor and then, with his encouragement, chased away the second from his cousin. And that was what happened. Mrs. Fig finished somewhat lamely. Madame Bone looked down at Miss Fudge in silence. Fudge is now looking at her tall, dark, not a very convincing witness, said Fudge loftily. Oh, I don't know, said Madame Bones in her booming voice. She certainly described the effect of Dementor attack very accurately, and I can't imagine why she would say they were there in if they weren't. But Dementor wandering into Muggles' suburb and just happening to come across a wizard, snored Fudge. Roar on that must be very, very long. Even Bagman wouldn't have bet. Oh, I don't think any of us believe the Dementors were by coincidence, said Dumbledore lightly. The witch sitting to the right of the Fudge, with her face in shadow, moved slightly, but everyone else was quite still and silent. And what is this supposed to mean? Asked Fudge icily. This means that I think they were ordered there, said Dumbledore. I think we might have a record of it if someone had ordered a pair of Dementor to go strolling through Little Winking. Barked Fudge, not if the Dementor are taking order from someone other than Ministry of Magic these days, said Dumbledore calmly. I have already given you my view on this matter, Cornelis. Yes, you have, said Fudge forcefully, and I have no reason to believe that your view and anything other than Blix. Dumbledore, the Dementor remain in place in Azkaban and are doing everything we ask them to do. Then said Dumbledore quietly but clearly, we must ask ourselves why somebody with the ministry ordered a pair of Dementor into that alleyway on the 2nd of August. In the complete silence that greeted this world, the witch on the right of the Fudge leaned forward so that Harry saw her for the first time. He thought She looked just like a large pale toad. She was rather squat, with a broad, flabby face and little neck as Uncle Vernon, and a very wide, slack mouth. Her eyes were large, round, slightly bulging. Even the little black velvet bows perched on top of her short, curly hair put him in mind a large fly she was about to catch on a long sticky tongue. The chair recognized Dorley Jane Umbridge, Senior Under Secretary to the Ministry of Fudge. We spoke in a fluent, clearish, high-pitched voice that took Harry aback. He had been expecting a croak. I'm sure I must have misunderstood you, Professor Dumbledore, she said with a simper that left her big round eyes as cold as ever. So silly of me, but it sounded for a teen's moment as though you were suggesting that the Ministry of Magic had ordered to an attack this boy. She gave a silvery laugh that made the hair on the back of Harry's neck stand up. A few other members of Viscoms laughed at her. It could not have been plainer than not one of them was really amused. It is true that the Dementors are taking order only from Ministry of Magic, and it is also true that two Dementors attacked Harry and his cousin a week ago. Then it followed logically that somebody of the Ministry Magic have ordered the attack, said Dumbledore politely. Of course, this particular Dementor may have been outside Ministry control. There are no Dementor outside Ministry control, sniffed Fudge, who had turned brick red. Dumbledore inclined his head in little bow. Then undoubtedly the ministry will be making a full inquiry into why two Dementors were so very far from Azkaban and why they attacked to unauthorization. It is not for you to decide what the Ministry of Magic does or does not do, Dumbledore snapped Fudge, now a shade of Magneta of which Uncle Vernon would have been proud. Of course it isn't, said Dumbledore quietly. I was merely expressing my confidence that this matter will go uninvestigated. He glanced at Madame Bones, who readjusted her monocle and stared back at him, falling slightly. I would remind everybody that the behavior of this Dementor, if indeed they are not figment of this boy's imagination, is not the object of his hearing, said Fudge. We are here to examine Harry Potter's offense under the decree of reasonable restriction of underage sorcery. Of course we are, said Dumbledore, but the presence of Dementor in that alleyway is highly relevant. Clause 7 of Decree state that magic may be used before Muggle in exceptional circumstances, and as those exceptional circumstances include situations that threaten the life of a wizard or witch himself, or witches, wizards, or Muggles present at this time of the we are familiar with clause 7 that thank you very much, sneered Fudge. Of course you are, said Dumbledore courteously. Then we are in agreement that Harry's use of Patron's charm in these circumstances fall precisely into the category of exceptional circumstances it described. There was Dementor. I doubt. You have heard from the eyewitness, Dumbledore interrupted. If you still doubt her truthfulness, call her back, question her again. I'm sure she would not object. I that not, blustered Fudge, fiddling with the paper before him. It's I want this over today, Dumbledore, but naturally you would not care how many times you heard from a witness if the alternative was a serious miscarriage of justice, said Dumbledore. Serious miscarriage? My hat, said Fudge at the top of his voice. Have you ever bothered to talk of the number of cock and bull stories this boy has come out with, Dumbledore, while trying to cover up his flagrant misuse of magic out of school? I suppose you have forgotten the power charm he used 3 years ago. That wasn't me. It was a house elf, said Harry. You see, roared Fudge, gesturing flamboyantly in Harry's direction. A house elf in a muggle house. I ask you, the house elf in question is currently in a employee of Hogwarts school, said Dumbledore. I can summon him here in an instant to give evidence if you wish. I nod. I haven't got time to listen to house elves. Anyway, that's not the only. He blew up his aunt for God's sake, first shouted, banging his fist on Judge Blanche, upsetting a bottle of ink. And you very kindly did not press charge on that occasion, excepting, I presume, that even the best wizard cannot always control their emotions, said Dumbledore calmly, as Fudge attempted to scrub the ink off his notes. And I haven't even started on what he gets up to at school. But as the ministry has no authority to punish Hogwarts students for misdemeanors at school, Harry's behavior there is not relevant to this inquiry, said Dumbledore politely as ever, but not with a suggestion of coldness behind his word. Oh, said Fudge, not our business what he does at school. Yeah, you think so? The ministry does not have the power to expel Hogwarts student Cornelius, as I reminded you on the night of the 2nd August, said Dumbledore. Nor does it have the right to confiscate what until charges have been successfully proven. Again, I remind you on the night of the 2nd of August, if you are admirable has to ensure that the law is upheld, you appear inadvertently, I am sure, to have overlooked a few laws yourself. Law can be changed, said Fawkes savagely. Of course they can, said Dumbledore, inclining his head, and you certainly seem to be making many changes, Cornelius. Why, in the few short weeks since I was asked to leave the Viscounts, it has already become the practice to hold a full criminal trial to deal with a simple matter of underage magic. A few of the wizards above them shifted uncomfortably in their seat. First turned a slightly deeper shade of peace. The toad-like witch on his right, however, merely gazed at Dumbledore, her face quite expressionless. As far as I am aware, however, Dumbledore continued, there is no law yet in place that say his court's job is to punish, said for every bit of magic he has ever performed. He has been charged with a specific offense and he has presented his defense. All he had I can do now is to await your verdict. Dumbledore put his fingertips together again and said no more. Fudge glared at him. Evidently, instead, Harry glanced sideways at Dumbledore, seeking reassurance. He was not at all sure that Dumbledore was right in telling the Viscounts, in effect, that it was about time they made a decision. Again, however, Dumbledore seemed oblivious to Harry's attempt to catch his eyes. He continued to look up at the bench where the entire Visigoths had fallen into urgent whispered conversation. Harry looked at his feet. His heart, which seemed to have swollen to an unnatural size, was thumping loudly under his rib. He had expected the hearing to last longer than this. He was not all sure that he had made a good impression. He had not really sighed very much. He ought to have explained more fully about the Dementor, about how he had fallen over, about how both he and Dudley had nearly been kissed. Twice he looked up at first and opened his mouth to speak, but his swollen heart was now constricting his ear passage, and both times he merely took a deep breath and looked back at his shoes. Then the whispering stopped. Harry wanted to look up at judges, but found that it was really much easier to keep examining his laces. Was in favor of cleaning the accused of all charges, said a Madame Bohm's booming voice. Harry's head jerked upward. There were hand in ear, many of them, more than half, breathing very fast. He tried to count, but before he could finish, Madame Bones said, and those in favor of convict. First raised his hand, so did half a dozen others, including the witch on his right, and a heavily mustached wizard and fizzing hair witch in a second row. First glanced around at them, all looking as though there was something large stuck in his throat, then lowered his own hand. He took two deep breaths and then said in a voice very destroyed by suppressed rage, very well, cleared of all charges. Excellence, said Dumbledore briskly, springing to his feet, pulling out his wand and causing the two chintz armchair to vanish. Well, I must be getting along. Good day to you all. And without looking once at Harry, he swept from the dragon. That's it for today. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for next chapter. Till then, see ya. Bye bye.